Number 10. Affair with August. So by now, we all know Jada's affair with August as Lena, but it was a secret that she never wanted exposed, and something that she tried to deny up until the very last minute. This is how it all went down. While promoting his third album, August sat down with the Breakfast Club and claimed that the Smiths, whom he considers to be like his family, had an open marriage, and Will allegedly gave the singer permission to date Jada. Quote, "I actually sat down with Will and had a conversation. He gave me his blessing." He also admitted that they deeply love each other, but that he felt like not talking about their relationship was affecting him professionally and personally, because it was a secret that was weighing him down. This was explosive when it first came out, and it's clear that Jada would have prevented this if she could. Almost immediately, her publicist came out with statements denying any romantic involvement, stating that the claims were absolutely not true. But it was already too late to backtrack, and the couple finally decided to air out their dirty laundry and went on the Red Table Talk about a week later. Number 9. Feud with Gabrielle Union. Unbeknownst to the world, Jada Pinkett Smith and Gabrielle Union were secretly not speaking to each other for almost 2 decades. The actresses, who both gained prominence in the late 90s, had a long-standing tension between them that led to a 17-year-long feud. Although neither of them can pinpoint the exact moment that caused the rift, both admit to feeling awkward around each other during this period. The two finally put an end to the silence in an episode of the Red Table Talk, where they both talked about how they've grown in terms of female relationships. Jada said, quote, "She and I did not talk for 17 years, and we could not remember why. There was just a tension between us every time we would see each other." She went on to say that there was some moment where they had left a bad taste in each other's mouths. Years later, when they finally got on the phone to figure out what exactly went wrong, they couldn't figure it out. Jada went on to suggest that it was probably just the two of them being young divas, but even they don't really know for sure. Number 8. Scientology School. This next one is super crazy. Leah Remini claimed that the Smiths founded a school based on Scientology. So to give some background, the couple opened the New Village Leadership Academy, a mysterious private school in Calabasas, California, that opened its doors in 2008 before quietly closing in 2013. While Jada furiously denied the allegations in a 2009 interview with Ebony magazine, quote, "All I can say is that it is not a Scientology school. Now, if you don't trust me and you are questioning my integrity, that's a whole different matter." But the Daily Beast actually spoke to 4 former teachers at the school who all admitted that Scientology is not only bled into the curriculum, but that it was essentially a Scientology school. Also, most of the teachers were followers of the controversial religion themselves, and there were pictures of L. Ron Hubbard hanging on the walls, who was a science fiction writer and founder of Scientology in the 70s. Not only that, but on the Academy's website, which has since been removed, it actually mentioned the study technology as, quote, "an educational model developed by L. Ron Hubbard." Number 7. Failed music career. Miller's passion for singing didn't end after they began pursuing their acting career. Their band, Sons of an Illustrious Father, has over 22,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, which means that despite Miller's fame and notoriety, the band hasn't really seen much success over a decade of making music. So things started to make sense when in May of this year, 2 musicians came forward accusing Miller of stealing music they worked on and releasing it without giving them credit. Music producer Oliver Ignatius and rapper Guy Scavera claimed that the actor stole the music they worked on together and posted it to social media without credits. Ignatius met up with Miller in both the Northeast and Hawaii to collaborate on new music, but soon realized that they, quote, "seemed to be on a very dangerous spiral," and said that working with the actor actually felt like pulling teeth. In fact, they called their behavior atrocious, belligerent, threatening, and incredibly aggressive. But after Ignatius quit the project, Miller then posted the unfinished music online, including songs that they had not worked on together at all. Now Ignatius plans to file a court order for Miller to take the music down. Number 6. Substance misuse. When Jada was young, she had some very real issues dealing with the addiction that came with substance misuse. She also acknowledged that she drank excessively and used all kinds of narcotics. Quote, "For me, drinking red wine was like drinking a glass of water. I drank a lot in high school, and then I went on to mix everything up." She then recalls a time that she mixed a variety of illicit substances that are a dangerous combination when used together. While on her talk show, she recounted before her mother and daughter that she was high functioning during the week and consumed almost no alcohol for several days, but spent her weekends at parties. Quote, "From Thursday to Monday morning, it was non-stop. Things went on like this for a while, until one episode that changed everything forever. It was in 1996, during the filming of The Nutty Professor, that a young Jada went to work still high off one of her partying binges, and she was in very bad condition." She went on to say that she passed out on set and told everyone it must have been from expired medication, and and that was the wake-up call she needed. So when looking back on that time, she sees the whole thing as a miracle. Number 5. Allegations of racism. Last year, Quincy Jones revealed to The Hollywood Reporter that he always refused to work with Elvis because he was a racist. The musician, best known for producing Michael Jackson's albums Thriller, Off the Wall, and Bad, made the comments about Elvis's supposed history of racism in his new interview. The outlet asked Jones about Presley after the producer compared Jackson to the king of rock and roll. The 88-year-old musician and producer described a time when he was writing for the orchestra leader Tommy Dorsey in the 50s, and Elvis came in saying, quote, "I don't want to play with him." Jones went on to call Elvis a racist and added, quote, "But every time I saw Elvis, he was being coached by Otis Blackwell, telling him how to sing." And while there wasn't an overwhelming amount of accusations surrounding Elvis's past racism, there are certainly many allegations against the icon for appropriating black culture and repackaging it to the general public as his own. Despite this, it's obvious that American society still allowed him to have a very successful career, whether it was something the late singer did consciously or subconsciously. Number 4. Leah Remini's accusations. In her memoir, Troublemaker, Leah recalls a time that she and her husband, Angelo, spent time at Tom Cruise's Beverly Hills mansion when he invited a group of well-known Scientologists and other celebrities, including the Smiths. This is where the story gets a little crazy. He announced to all the guests that he wanted to play hide and seek. Leah somehow got out of it and claimed that her stilettos were too high to run. While it sounds a little weird, in her book, Leah called the Smiths as more famous friends of the church, and even told the Daily Beast in 2017, quote, "I know Jada's in. She's been in Scientology a long time. I never saw Will there, but I saw Jada at the Celebrity Center." She even goes on to mention the Scientology school that they opened and reveals that despite what Jada has been saying, that she is indeed good friends with Tom Cruise and an active member of the controversial religion. Then on Watch What Happens Live in July 2017, Jada told Andy Cohen that the hide and seek story just wasn't true, and later posted on Twitter, quote, "I have studied Dianetics and appreciate the merits of study tech, but I am not a Scientologist." Number 3. Police body cam footage. A Hawaii police assistant chief recently admitted that Miller had been the source of 10 police calls in Hilo since March 7th, with complaints ranging from filming people at a gas station, traffic obstruction, and refusing to leave a restaurant. But police body cam footage has surfaced online, which really made the actor look terrible. In the video, one of the law enforcement officers is heard calling Miller sir, to which they respond, quote, "I'm sorry, I'm not a sir, I'm transgender non-binary. Please don't call me sir. If you fail to do that again, that is an act of intentional bigotry," and started citing US federal law. While asking police officers to identify themselves, the Flash star could be heard screaming requests for a full badge member and accusing the officers of touching their private parts, saying, quote, "I'm transgender, non-binary, and I don't want to be searched by a man." It was a fair request under the circumstances, but the video just made the actor look bad. Number 2. Issues with Chris Rock. Viewers of this year's Oscars were left completely in shock when Will infamously walked up on stage and slapped comedian Chris Rock across the face for making jokes about Jada. But what most people don't know is that the beef between the Smiths and Rock actually goes back several years, so the tension has always been there. Chris once took aim at Jada while he was hosting the 2016 Oscars, because the couple had very publicly decided to boycott the event. At the time, their protest was due to the fact that no actors of color were nominated for the second year in a row. Chris said, quote, "Jada boycotting the Oscars is like me boycotting Rihanna's panties. I wasn't invited." He actually said this during his opening monologue, and it really seemed to sting the actress. The comedian also took a dig at Will at the very same time. He spoke about the actor's performance in the movie Concussion, saying that it's not fair that Will was this good and didn't get nominated, then added it's also not fair that Will was paid $20 million for Wild Wild West. It was such a burn that the couple was clearly not able to shake off. The open relationship. While on the Red Table Talk, some more very questionable things came out that exposed the nature of Will and Jada's relationship. Basically, Will implied that the couple's decision to open up their marriage was Jada's idea because she told him that she never believed in conventional marriage and that they needed to figure out how to make themselves happy individually. So it was almost like she told him that happiness can be found with other people. But Jada's affair with August started to make a bit more sense sense when she openly spoke about her disappointing sex life with Will. While talking with Gwyneth Paltrow, Jada outright said that keeping the spark alive in their marriage is hard, implying that although they've been married for almost 25 years, he still doesn't know exactly what she wants in the bedroom. Quote, "Because I think you expect your partner to know what you need, especially when it comes to sex. It's like, well, if you love me, you should know. You should read my mind. That's a huge pitfall." It must have been a little embarrassing for Will when Jada insinuated that he wasn't meeting her needs, but now it's obvious she was the one pushing for the open relationship. Number 10. Germaphobe. While speaking to Jonathan Ross in a 2015 interview, Priscilla Presley revealed that her late ex-husband was terrified of germs and would take his phobia to the extreme. She claimed that he even refused to use anyone else's silverware, which even included the ones at high-end restaurants. She said that because of his secret germophobia, he never liked to go to other people's homes to eat because he would have to take his own silverware, and that would often cause quite an uncomfortable situation, as you could imagine. Quote, "And he didn't like drinking out of cups that other people had drunk out of, even restaurants or other people's homes. So when he drank, he would drink where the handle was, knowing that no one would ever drink at that side." Although this information is not widely known, Priscilla says Elvis has been that way ever since he was a child. She believed that he just didn't like to put his mouth where other people had put their mouth, especially with cutlery and dishes, which is definitely something most people wouldn't have known about the star. Number 9. Liked younger women. In her book Elvis and Me, Priscilla Presley wrote that she just turned 14 when she met Elvis Presley, who was 24 years old at the time and already an international superstar. Despite the scandal, they started an intimate courtship that lasted 7 years before they eventually married in 1967. Now, the age difference is creepy on its own, but it becomes even creepier when you compare that to what Linda Thompson wrote in her own memoir. Thompson, who dated Elvis after his marriage to Priscilla ended, was also very young and inexperienced at the time. In fact, he allegedly told her, quote, "I want to preserve you for as long as you need." Whatever he meant by that, it just sounds super icky. Elvis reportedly took advantage of his power to manipulate young, impressionable fans whenever he went on tour. Joel Williamson, who wrote a historical book about Elvis, claimed that 2 years before he met his future wife, the star took a group of 3 girls with him on tour for the purpose of, quote, "pillow fights, tickling, and cuddling." Number 8. His vanity. Fame is a terrible drug that often pushes stars into the oddest methods of trying to stay thin and beautiful. Linda Thompson wrote in her memoir that Elvis's obsession with being slim would drive him to bizarre measures to keep the weight off, including an alleged 2-week period of sedation. That's exactly what it sounds like. Elvis mainly slept all day except for brief periods where he woke up long enough to go to the bathroom and eat a small portion of food before being sedated again and going back to sleep. She also claimed that he regularly did crash diets on just 500 calories a day. She also exposed his secret about why he constantly wore shirts with high collars. Apparently, he did it to conceal his neck, which he actually hated. She wrote that the whole reason he wore the trademark style was to keep his, quote, "skinny little chicken neck hidden from the public." Then at age 40, Elvis allegedly opted for a facelift. Quote, "There has been speculation through the years that Elvis has his eyes done or some other mystery procedure, but that mini facelift was the extent of his plastic surgery." Well, it seems like his ex-wife was really intent on revealing a side of him that was incredibly vain. Number 7. Investigated by CPS. This incident was not widely known at all because it happened in 2015 when Willow was barely a teenager. Jada admitted on the Red Table Talk in 2019 that she was furious after Child Protective Services showed up to the family home to investigate whether or not her daughter Willow was being starved. It all started when a 14-year-old Willow was photographed while lying in bed next to her shirtless family friend, who was 20 at the time. While she insisted that the photo was innocent, it was definitely extremely controversial, and CPS also thought so too. So they decided to intervene after the agency received a complaint accusing the Smiths of starving their teenager. When recalling the incident, Jada admitted that it was the first time she got really furious. Quote, "I was looking at the lady and the whole time I was thinking, you could be helping so many kids right now, and you're wasting your time with a child who has everything they need." According to the actress, both Willow and Jaden exhibited passive behavior throughout the visit and said that it was like their own personal protest to being investigated by the agency. Number 6. Attacked his fiancée. After Linda Thompson, Elvis briefly dated Mindy Miller before becoming involved with Ginger Alden, who was a full 20 years younger than him. It was only 2 months into their relationship when Elvis proposed to her and she accepted. The couple planned to walk down the aisle just a few months before Elvis's untimely death, and Alden even said how excited he was about their wedding and their future together as a couple. She revealed to Express that during his final days, quote, Elvis was looking forward to many things: marriage, more children, serious films, and his next tour. But Elvis was reportedly very manipulative when it came to women and could be extremely jealous and controlling. According to sources close to the star at the time, he could get very violent. His treatment of her was horrifying, and the pair constantly argued during their time together. After one particular fight, he allegedly asked someone in his entourage to pop the tires on Alden's car so she couldn't leave his home. And on another occasion, when she was driving away after an argument, Elvis reportedly aimed his weapon at her car and fired. Number 5. Vermont farm. Up until now, people have only been able to speculate about what really goes on in their Vermont farm. But recently, a new report has made headlines alleging even more concerning activity involving the actor and people that are underage. According to Rolling Stone, Miller is currently housing a 25-year-old mother and her 3 young ones at their elusive home that they share with their bandmates and friends. The report suggests that the property doubles as an unlicensed farm, which grows a certain leafy green substance and is also littered with weapons. The mother claims that the actor helped her escape the domestic violence that was occurring in her relationship, telling Rolling Stone anonymously that Miller's home has been a healing haven for the family, but the young ones are reportedly exposed to a large amount of smoke from the illicit substance in poorly ventilated environments. And sources who've been inside the property say that there are about 8 weapons of various sizes just lying around the living room, with some propped up next to a pile of stuffed animals. One source told a particularly disturbing story about one of the little ones finding a loose bullet and putting it in their mouth. Number 4. Hidden children. Even though he has been gone for many years, Elvis Presley has always been the center of several new scandals and controversies. One of the many that have hit the headlines in the last few years is that the king of rock and roll supposedly kept hidden children from the rest of the world. The National Enquirer actually conducted a 2-year investigation into the hidden children of the Presley family, reportedly acquiring witness testimonies, checking receipts, mail correspondence, birth certificates, and even DNA tests. The result of the investigation allegedly proves that Elvis did have several additional children that were being kept away from the spotlight of Hollywood. In fact, multiple alleged mothers of Elvis's hidden children have come forward to tell their stories about how they met the star, and the stories have some strange similarities. One example is Desiree Romaine Presley, who is the daughter of Lucy DeBarban, and she claims that her mother was in a 24-year-long relationship with Elvis and was being kept away from the media. But the crazy thing is that Desiree's father is listed as Randolph Presley on her birth certificate, someone who allegedly worked at the Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. Number 3. Addiction to adult videos. The actress confessed a little-known fact about her personal life. One of them was that she used to be addicted to sex. Quote, "My types of addictions jump from one side to the other. When I was younger, I thought I had some kind of sex addiction and that everything could be fixed with that." She claimed that she was addicted to adult movies at a time in her life when she had decided to practice abstinence. But her addiction got out of control and she was forced to stop consuming X-rated movies. She went on to say that she got hooked on hardcore movies that were very disturbing. Quote, "It's the behavior that's attached to it, because if you want to have a lot of sex, that's great, but why are you having all that sex? That's what you've got to look at." Jada also shared that once she took it too far when it came to pleasuring herself, and she admitted that while she was taking a break from men, she became way too addicted to doing it herself. And at her lowest, she was doing it 5 times a day, before she suddenly decided one day that it was enough because it had taken control of her life. Number 2. Why Priscilla ended things. Because she was only 14 years old when their courtship began, it's really no surprise that she missed out on a huge chunk of her adolescence. She told Jonathan Ross in 2015, quote, "I was kind of lost, really, in who I was earlier in my life. I really didn't have teenage years." After their first child, Lisa Marie, was born, Priscilla accused Elvis of not wanting to sleep with her after she had given birth. Elvis told her that he wanted her to recover, but Priscilla later wrote in her memoir that he had mentioned before they were married that he had never been able to make love with a woman who'd had a child. In fact, throughout their marriage, Elvis continued to cheat on Priscilla with other women, and she herself had her own affair with an owner of a dance studio. It's safe to say that their marriage never really recovered. They finalized their divorce in 1973, and she said that this was because her life was his life, which meant her problems were always going to be secondary. Years later, she admitted that she did not divorce him because she didn't love him, but because she had to find out about the world. She was clearly just way too young when they started seeing each other. Number 1. Erratic violence. In recent years, Linda Thompson has been pretty open about her time with Elvis Presley, stating, quote, "We all knew how dangerous Elvis's rage could be. Apparently, when she first noticed Elvis could get pretty angry was when someone reportedly stole personal photos of one of his ex-girlfriends with another woman. She claimed that he then decided to show off his samurai sword collection while under the influence of illegal substances and left her fearing for her life. Although she said that he was true to his word and he didn't in fact hurt her, she was concerned because his talents were entirely impaired due to the narcotics. These were just some of the several times that his ex said that she worried about his boiling rage. Apparently, the musician even invested in a concealed carry permit to take the weapons on stage with him, including several that were actually stuffed into his shoes, just in case someone got a little bit too rowdy in the crowd. Even singer Tom Jones spoke about Elvis's love of weapons during a visit to his dressing room. Tom said that he noticed a loaded weapon just sat on the side and simply handed it to Elvis by wrapping it in a towel. Sounds a little crazy to me. Number 10. Fantastic Beasts 4. The new movie has technically already been planned by Warner Brothers, but it hasn't officially been confirmed, and the future of the franchise looks bleak, partly due to Miller's erratic behavior. Before the release of The Secrets of Dumbledore, Variety reported that the studio was waiting to see how the 3 films were received before making the tough decision about whether or not to go forward with the remaining 2 movies. But at this time, the major Ezra Miller problem that the studio has on their hands is dampening the future success of all the DC Expanded Universe projects until a firm decision is made about how to handle the star's offset issues. The actor has starred in all 3 Fantastic Beasts films, playing Credence Barebone, and is also set to headline the upcoming Flash movie. However, due to the actor's legal woes, the filmmakers have decided to drop them in the spin-off film. And with the other controversies surrounding the Fantastic Beasts trilogy, including J.K. Rowling's anti-trans comments, it's clear that any planned sequels are more or less dead in the water. Number 9. Very first arrest. In June of 2011, Miller was a passenger in a vehicle that got pulled over for a broken brake light in Pittsburgh while shooting Perks of Being a Wallflower. Police found 20 grams of a leafy green substance on Miller, and the then 18-year-old was charged with possession. The judge was very lenient though, and after giving them a lecture about influencing the younger cast members, he let them off with a slap on the wrist and dropped the case altogether. The actor instead faced 2 citations of disorderly conduct and was ordered to pay $600. But it's clear that Miller wasn't very sorry, as several years later in 2018, they started smoking the very same substance during an interview with The Hollywood Reporter. They also went on to tell New York Magazine, quote, "It's a harmless herbal substance that increases sensory appreciation," also making it known that they first started smoking from a very young age. Number 8. Strange comments. In 2011, the star took the role of a teenage school shooter in We Need to Talk About Kevin, which was eventually dubbed one of the most controversial movies ever made, probably because the subject matter was just so disturbing. Miller went very deep into the role of a sociopath with method acting, and the ultimate result was a character so unsettling that they said it even bothered some of their friends. Quote, "I do get a certain kind of validation and gratification from the way people will sort of approach me tentatively, with a little bit of fear after they see the film. The admission by itself is not that strange, but when you look at Miller's interview with Vogue several years later, they asked the writer if she would like to see the crossbow that their character used to attack several classmates in the same film. They apparently keep the crossbow in their house and jump at the opportunity to show it to anyone who asks them about the movie." Number 7. Pet chimpanzee. This one is really messed up. Billy Smith, who was a member of Elvis's entourage, openly talked about how Scatter, Elvis's pet chimpanzee, was essentially used as a party favor that they trained to harass women. It said that the chimp would often look for women at parties and grab onto their clothes. According to Smith, Scatter also drank heavily. Quote, "He could down a fifth of liquor before you knew it." Smith remembered another time when Scatter was beaten by a woman at a party for misbehaving. There have been conflicting reports about what really happened to the chimp. Some state that he merely lost his life due to old age, but Smith speculated that Scatter was poisoned by one of the maids who was tasked with feeding him after he was abandoned by Elvis and the crew who were out on the road. Although it's unclear exactly how he passed, it appears as though Scatter took his last breath on his own after years of living the party lifestyle. The whole thing was really rather sad, as it seemed like Elvis and his friends used the chimp just to entertain themselves and discarded him when they went on tour. Number 6. Altercations with fans. The Flash actor has had so many disturbing and at times violent altercations with fans that there's almost too many to mention. One was actually captured on video in 2017 at a San Diego Diego Comic-Con event, when a fan jokingly asked Miller to smell their breath, and Miller responded by kissing the fan directly on the mouth, planting a big kiss on the man's lips without clear consent. The trouble is that Miller seemed to be slightly intoxicated in the video, leading fans to question if they were drunk. And in a since-deleted tweet, a disturbing video shows Miller choking a woman at a bar in Iceland. The incident took place after Miller was approached by a group of eager young fans, and the actor appeared to lose their temper at the young woman for no apparent reason. She was then grabbed by the throat and thrown to the ground. But the actor seemed to have evaded a lot of heat for the altercation, as some fans claim that it's still a joke. Number 5. Marriage to Will. In December of 1997, the couple got married. A year later, Jaden, their first child, was born. In 2000, they became the parents of a girl they named Willow. Although her marriage had already surpassed 2 decades, which is a really long time when you look at other Hollywood couples, there were many secrets about their real feelings towards each other that were kept hidden from the public eye. Jada eventually confessed that at first she did not want to marry Will. She was 3 months pregnant at the time and felt that she was pressured to say "I do." Quote, "I was so angry because they forced me to get married. So angry that I walked all the damn aisle to the altar crying." So on their wedding day, Jada got cold feet and actually didn't want to go through with it. There was also a time when their marriage hit rock bottom, and it happened when Will realized that his wife had cried for 45 days straight over their troubled marriage. Quote, "She would wake up and start crying. She did it for 45 consecutive days. I know this because I wrote it down in a diary." He also said that it was a time he felt worst in their marriage. This was very difficult for the actor because he had been trying to paint the picture of a perfect family, but it was only putting stress on the couple. Number 4. Mia Solange. Miller has been accused of inflicting twisted acts upon a former intimate partner, Mia Solange. These acts range from physical violence to emotional manipulation after they started dating in 2019. This claim against Miller came to light on April 1st when a Twitter account dedicated to Ezra Miller receipts made a number of messages public exchanged between themselves and the accuser, a young TikToker by the name of Mia Solange, where she declared that Ezra flew her from Hawaii to Oklahoma to work on a movie, and that she was only 19 at the time. She also sent a photo of bruises on her leg supposedly sustained from Ezra, claiming that he would aggressively bite her. Solange's claims against Miller would garner more widespread attention on April 23rd after they shared a now deleted video montage to TikTok featuring photos of the two, most of which were previously seen in the screenshot of their camera roll, and declared, quote, "Ezra Miller is not a good human, and I can finally say so without being terrified." Sounds like it was an absolute nightmare. Number 3. Addicted to medication. It's not unheard of for celebrities to turn to substances as a way to cope with fame and just how crazy their lives become in the spotlight. But Elvis's alleged addictions could have had a very different origin when you look at the tragedy of his mother's passing. In 1958, he was drafted into the US Army, but went to Germany but had to return to the US less than 6 months later because of his mother's untimely death. Many people believe that this marked the beginning of the end for Elvis, who quickly headed down a path of self-destruction. As soon as he returned to Germany, it's reported that Elvis partied heavily and would often get into fights. During this time, he also started taking illegal substances to try and deal with the grief of losing his mother. This probably snowballed, and it's assumed that from that moment on, the misuse of substances played a major role in his life. Linda Thompson wrote several examples in her memoir about these incidents and says that she often found Elvis passed out in a bowl of chicken noodle soup under the influence of sedatives. She even says that doctors tried to hospitalize him for 2 weeks after misusing a combination of medication for far too long. Number 2. Harassment protection order. A mother and her child were granted a temporary harassment protection order against Miller in Massachusetts after alleging the actor behaved inappropriately towards the child and also brandished a weapon in a threatening manner. The Daily Beast's investigation reported that the family was at a downstairs neighbor's house on February 2nd, when Miller showed up reportedly wearing a bulletproof vest and started acting in a creepy manner towards the child. Miller allegedly told them, quote, "I've talked extensively with your child and they have a lot of power to them. At one point you're going to realize that you don't have any control over them anymore. They're an elevated being and they would be lucky to have someone like me guide them." The visiting neighbor told the outlet that Miller was especially focused on the child, allegedly pestering them with compliments, uncomfortably hugging them, and even touching their hips. When they were questioned about this, Miller reportedly blew up, openly opened their jacket to reveal a weapon and started threatening everyone with it. Number 1. Cult behavior. In January, Chase Ionize accompanied Ezra Miller and his daughter, the now missing 18-year-old Indigenous activist Gibson Ionize, to Oakland, California, and claimed that the actor had also brought along 2 other young women, one known as Stella Marbles and the other was Mia Solange. While at a state park, Miller repeatedly told Chase that they believed themselves to be the second coming of Jesus Christ before pulling out a firearm. This really lines up with all their other cult-like behavior, as Gibson is not the only young person who seems to be caught in their spell. Miller has just about kidnapped Gibson and has been creeping on them since they were 12 years old. The Standing Rock Sioux Tribal Court has issued a protective order against Miller, whom they have accused of using violence and brainwashing to hold sway over the child. That is textbook cult behavior.